Away they go then for 10 laps of frantic Formula First racing. It's Keith Farrant who's got the start at the beginning. A very clean getaway. Chris Goodwin looking to go down the inside into Paddock Bend, but really Keith Farrant in the spotted car has got the advantage at the beginning. These cars all identical chassis.
Brands Hatch on a bright, cold day in the middle of December, and the last race of the opening season of a new racing formula for the novice driver, aptly named Formula First. In a world where money can buy a seat in more or less any car, right up the racing pyramid to Formula One, Formula First set out to eliminate all differences except for driver ability, to let the real talent shine through. One make of car, one type of tyre, no scope for engine tuning and suspension modification, and no change in the design for a full 5 years. The season started back in April, also on a bright, clear day at Brands Hatch. As the grid assembled, the new cars were about to be tested under racing conditions for the very first time. As the lights changed, poleman Ben Edwards bangs in his clutch, the transmission brakes, and the field had to find their way round a stationary car right at the front of the grid. General mayhem there, and then a lap later, a major incident on the run-up to Druids, and 7 cars in all were out of the race. Wisely, the stewards decided to stop it and restart the whole event. So to the restart of the first Formula First race, and the same thing happened. Sean Hollenby dropped his clutch in, bang, no drive, and he was stuck with his hands in the air on the front of the grid, while the field desperately tried to get round him. In the pack, car number 1, the very first customer car, fitted with a camera to give a view over the shoulder of its driver, Chris Goodwin, a young engineering student at Imperial College, and living not far from Brands Hatch at Chelsfield in Kent.
Well, I've been going to race meetings with my dad ever since, since I can remember. I want to be a racing driver, I think.
How far do you want to go?
As far as my ability will take me, I suppose. I'd like to combine it with my engineering training.
We're going to see you in a Formula One car?
Perhaps, I don't know.
Chris Goodwin had some pretty tough rivals for the Cellnet Formula First Championship, and plenty more were to join in over the 20-race series.
Obviously, Formula First is the ideal starting ground to make a career in motor racing, and that's what I intend to do.
And where would you finish up, do you think?
Well, the top of the profession is Formula One, obviously. I would like to make it to that.
I'm in motor racing because I've always wanted to race. I'm doing Formula First because I see that as the first step to get into Formula One, which is what I'm aiming to do.
How's it handling?
Great. It's ever so forgiving. If you oversteer or understeer, you correct it and no problem.
And you're staying with the rest of the pack?
Well, when I can get my gears, yes. I'm having a bit of problem with my gear selection. But apart from that, it's fine.
In first place, number 4.
The whole Formula First project was very rushed, and many of the competitors had barely driven their cars before the race. The first thing to say about it is that the formula is very cheap, but the cars really are proper racing cars from front to back. The Van Diemen Racing Company at Snetterton in Norfolk has chosen a space frame chassis that's very strong and durable, and that's perfectly understandable because these cars have to last for 5 seasons in this form. The engine, well, that's an XR2 unit from the Fiesta. It's virtually bog standard. All they've done is dry sumped it, and they've tilted it over at an angle to get the height of the car down. It's got proper racing car suspension, front and rear, and it's got Dunlop rubber that's been specially made for this formula. Now, the whole idea of Formula First is that these cars are going to be to the same specification for 5 seasons racing, so you people can come into the formula and they'll know that they're on the same level as everyone else. So how do you take a car straight off the drawing board and know it's going to work first time?
Well, obviously, there was a lot of head scratching, particularly as we'd no experience of mounting an engine transversely in a chassis and with a particular weight distribution problem we've got that comes with that. So, I mean, David, our chief design engineer, laid out a car which he thought would be right, and we hoped and prayed that his educated guesses would bear fruit. And as it's turned out, we were obviously quite fortunate. Everybody who's driven the car appears to be very, very happy with it.
One of those assessing the performance of the new car was Tiff Needell, a professional racing driver and television race commentator.
So out of the pit lane for our first lap in a Formula First. A new training formula for young aspiring Grand Prix drivers. And the important thing now is to find out whether this is a good training formula. Do the cars handle as you'd like for a trainer? Will it teach drivers about oversteer and understeer? And can we adapt the car to suit? Certainly through Graham Hill Bend there, the car is very smooth. The long bottom straight up to 30. It's a lift of the throttle. The car goes in very responsive, very much like a proper single-seater. Clearways turn, oversteer in and power on. And that was almost exactly as I'd like to do clearways in this sort of car. The gearbox is the standard Escort gearbox, so we can't change gear ratios. And maybe Paddock Bend now approaching should be third or fourth. I'll try third, getting a bit of a mess, but slightly locked the brakes up. But there I'm pulling 6,200 revs coming out of the corner, so maybe it should be fourth gear next time. So this time we're going to try and take fourth gear from Paddock to see if that's going to be better than third. Braking late, getting himself set up, a little bit of oversteer in, and there we leave in 4,600. Druid second. I want to get the back out and then power, power, power all the way around. So I can go flat into bottom bend. Needs to be taken flat out. Here on the right line we can see the car very neutral. 30s, needs a lift. Just a little bit of oversteer in. Then again, very good. Clearways, we want to get third gear, which I've missed. And we've missed third gear.
Tiff Needell wasn't the only one to have trouble finding third gear. Several of the drivers in the first race had the same problems, and it caused a number of incidents.
Yellow flags? Yes, there they go.
But at the end of that first Formula First event, Eugene O'Brien had run away to win the race. Chris Goodwin was well up with the leaders, but had a spin coming out of Druids. That dropped him down to 14th place. He then battled his way back up the field to finish 6th, a very creditable effort.
It was very exciting. Made a bit of a mistake, which made it even more so, but...
What happened at the top of Druids?
I just got a bit too carried away. I was trying too hard too soon, I think. The others are a bit more experienced than me, so I was just trying a bit too hard to keep up. I think maybe because it's such an occasion that I think people are getting a bit carried away. I think maybe I did as well.
And we hear Heather Bailey's hurt herself a bit.
Yeah, it's a shame. They're very strong cars, but she's very unlucky to hurt herself, I think.
The accident was another blamed on a missed third gear, and Heather Bailey damaged her ankle when the suspension pushed through into the footwell. Mechanical problems also caused the start line incidents when the shortened drive shafts let go where they'd been re-welded, giving Van Diemen some more head-scratching to do.
From Kelvin, and here now, ladies and gentlemen, is the third...
Kevin, my mechanic, said to me before the season started, I don't want you to win the championship, I want you to dominate it. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Plenty of excitement for the spectators then in the first round of the championship, and the same spirit prevailed as Eugene O'Brien and his colleagues got to grips with wheel-to-wheel racing in identical cars. By the end of May, there were over 60 Formula First cars built, and 39 were entered for the 6th round at Alton Park. That meant putting on 2 heats and a final, with Chris Goodwin and his camera going in Heat 1, this time also trying to make a running commentary.
Red light, get ready. Green and we're off. Damn it, Mr. Gear.
Thinking about words probably helped him to miss the infamous third gear and spoil his getaway.
Well, I've lost a few places there, so I think I'd better shut up now and concentrate on what I'm doing.
Formula First seems to be becoming a formula for people associated with the racing driver school business. The man leading the championship, Eugene O'Brien, won the first round. He's an instructor at Silverstone. Second place man, Ben Edwards, he's an instructor at Brands Hatch. And lying third and fourth are the Team Turaco cars, and that's Rafael Del Sart and Kelvin Burt. And fifth place man, Chris Goodwin.
Oh dear, that was Ben Edwards gone off there. I hope I won't do anything like that. Bloody hell, that was really rude. No, oh dear. He's not driving very well at all. I think I'll pass him as soon as possible.
It was always expected that Formula First racing would be close, but no one anticipated it would be quite so dramatic. Only one of the first 5 races went the full distance without having to be stopped for crashed cars to be cleared off the track. Because there have been so many incidents in Formula First, the drivers here in the paddock at Alton Park are starting to become worried about the way the bottom wishbones are attached to the chassis. In a heavy impact, this rod can come back through and pin your ankles. That's exactly what happened to Heather Bailey in our first race at Brands Hatch, and it's something that the Formula First organisers will have to think about. At that first Brands Hatch race, there was a lot of concern about the rear drive shafts here that were snapping. They were shortened and welded units. Since that race, Van Diemen have come up with a solid one-piece rear drive shaft, and there should be no more problems in that direction. For most people, the cars were now proving very safe and reliable, but there are always exceptions.
We developed a fairly severe water leak, and the engine is drastically overheated, and we've blown a head gasket, which has put us back to 6th on the grid.
But you're able to change a head gasket between practice and the race?
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of time available, but my mechanic, Kevin, is the best in the business, so I think he'll sort it out.
With all their engines theoretically giving the same power, the drivers needed to outthink their rivals to get to the front and win races. To find out how the professionals do it, Tiffany Dell took me out in an Escort XR3i at Brands Hatch. Tell me about racecraft. How do you get past somebody like this?
Well, that's often the difficult part. We've got a very experienced driver, Tony Trim, ahead of us in number 13, and we can try and get by on the inside, but he's going to brake very late. I think maybe we'll try and dive down the inside here, but of course, he straight away comes across and shuts the door on us. So the gap wasn't really there to go through this time. So now you try and get on the inside up to Druids, but again, you see,
he's come across you again.
Yeah, so you try the old outside, but it's just really not on. I mean, there are moments when you can just be very brave and barge through. But here, we'll try and make him go down to the right. We'll dummy down to this side, but we'll in fact go up high wide. Now we've got him boxed on the inside. So that now, as we come inside, we've pushed him wide, and now we've got him. And in the Grand Prix, that you put your windscreen wipers on. But there, now he can try the outside, but now we're away.
And again, we're blocking him.
Yeah, it's really a question of teeing people up like that, trying to dummy them to get the inside line.
So you're not only concentrating on driving the car right on the limit, but you've also got to think about how to get past these people.
Yeah, you've got to think ahead, you've got to try and do it for the corner after the next corner, because an experienced driver's just not going to let you dive by on the inside. Now this time again, we'll chop down the inside, but now we'll sprint back to the outside, so that again, we're higher than he is, and we can dive, holding a tight line, down his inside. He tries to shut the door, but this time we've got it.
In the midfield melee of a Formula First race, a driver needs to watch the cars behind him as much as the ones in front. After his poor start, Chris Goodwin made good progress through the field, but then found it difficult to get past Graham Fenimore.
I don't know what he's playing at. He's obviously very worried about me. Effing hell, bloody hell. Sorry about the swearing, but he only just missed me there. I think I'll be a bit careful trying to get past him. He's obviously very wild, as you can see, probably. He's sliding very wide. Oh, he's going to chop across me there. He's moving around a bit.
With 6 laps gone, things were looking good for Chris Goodwin. Enough cars had spun or dropped out to guarantee him a place in the final. Well, Chris Goodwin, they say motor racing is dangerous. You found out about it just now.
Certainly did, didn't I?
Well, what happened?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not quite sure. I touched another car at the hairpin, and
The world exploded.
look what happened. Yeah, a bit too pleased about it.
And what happens in an incident like today when you've done some damage?
Well, hopefully my sponsors will stick with me, and hopefully we'll be able to get the car back together.
Because you're not insured.
No, that's a risk you take. 1 or 2 minor shunts and you can get away without insuring. A couple of big crashes and then you're behind.
Rather shocked Chris Goodwin there, and looking at that car, it's going to take an awful lot of time and money to put right. So now on to the final here at Alton Park. And we've been very fortunate to be able to put our camera on Kelvin Burt's car, which finished second in the first heat. On pole position in the final, Eugene O'Brien was looking for his 4th win, but after a spin, he was right at the back of the field. He forced his way up to 7th place by the time the black flag was produced, and he had to stop.
As you know, I collided with Raphael at the start and dropped back to last place. It seems I was reported for dangerous driving, and I was given the black flag. I was black flagged for overtaking people.
I thought that was what motor racing was all about.
So did I.
Eugene's spin left Raphael Del Sarte out in front, and he finished an easy winner. Kelvin Burt, with the camera on board, had a very hard fight, but managed a 2nd place, a clean sweep for Team Taraco. Raphael Del Sarte, many congratulations on winning that race. It looked as though you had a fairly easy time up front.
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, I was in a good mood, and we felt it was possible today, really.
A lot of the rounds seem very packed with incidents. What's it like in the middle there?
Really, if you're involved in a pack, as I was, it's very difficult to make a break. But Raf got a break, and it's much easier that way.
The 2 recordings provided by the onboard camera gave Tiff Needell the chance to coach a chastened Chris Goodwin on the finer points of race driving in the comfort of his sitting room.
The pack swarms by. I think actually your first error before even the pack swarmed by and you missed gear was actually allowing us to put a microphone around you, because I think on these opening laps when you're trying to talk and drive is something that even the best Grand Prix driver probably wouldn't accept doing, so probably shouldn't have let us mic you up. See, here's the good. This is the end of the first lap here. I mean, if you'd gone on like this, you see how there you made a decisive move, split the 2 ahead of you. I mean, that was good. And in actual fact, if you continued like that for the next couple of laps, you would have been well away. But now, there's a typical sort of error you make, is down into Cascades, you look up the inside when there's really no hope of actually going through. And again, straight away, again, another problem, you pull out of the slipstream.
Yeah.
Come out, boom, before you've made your gear change. There you're gear changing when you should be in the slipstream. And it's only at this stage, halfway down to Ireland, should you be coming out of the slipstream, as the 2 people behind you did, and zapping you through. So really, that was the, the 2 bad mistakes that you then had to live with for the next 5 laps. But here, coming to your fatal spot, again, look how much earlier he brakes than you. Boom! Oof! And you're already straight up alongside him. but he does defend his position very strongly. Now he's got the weave on. There's a good example of what I'd call a fair weave in Formula Ford, Formula First. You know, he's just taking his position. But here, you see, if you just stop there at the instant, just before the fatal donk, again, the difference is you're slightly more over to the left than you were the lap before. So whereas in your mind you should be thinking you're going to be overtaking on the right, you've set yourself up looking down his left-hand side. Well, we'll stop that now, rather rapidly, I think. All to be learnt. You never stop learning.
That's right.
Chris Goodwin's accident kept him off the tracks for 5 races, but at least it provided more work for Van Diemen. For the factory in Snetterton, the numerous crashes in Formula First meant a thriving trade in spare parts, although Ralph Furman denied he was making a mint out of them.
I don't know about a mint because the spares are very reasonably priced, but certainly there's a steady flow of spares, and it's only to be expected if one has about 40 cars in the field.
At the Snetterton circuit in July, more excitement from a packed entry and more work for the factory from indiscretions like this accident in practice. But Brian Whitehead emerged unscathed from the wreckage, encouraging Ralph Furman's belief in the overall safety of the design. It gave him confidence that despite some criticism, the cars could continue unchanged for the full 5 years.
I feel it will. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a superb little car. As far as the accident that you can see here, yes, it's quite extensive damage, but if you hit Armco at 100 miles an hour, something has to give.
For round 12, Chris Goodwin made an inauspicious return to the track. On the green flag lap for the qualifying race, the car stalled at the S's and he was out of contention again.
Well, I seem to be having a very unlucky year. On the warm-up lap, I was on pole position for the heat, and on the warm-up lap, the car just stopped for no reason. I'm learning a hell of a lot. It just doesn't seem to be very easy for me. I am learning a lot, though. It's just I'm learning the hard way.
Front row of the grid for the final are the 2 championship leaders, Eugene O'Brien, number 13, and Ben Edwards, number 7, were set for an epic scrap. Eugene O'Brien and Ben Edwards swapped the lead at least 6 times during the 10-lap race, the very essence of Formula First dicing between the 2 drivers disputing the championship over the whole year. Eventually, after some muscular driving, Ben Edwards ran out the winner, much to Eugene O'Brien's annoyance.
I was overtaking Ben along the main straight, and he just swerved me straight onto the grass. It was quite simple. I got alongside him, and he turned sharp left. 2 wheels on the grass.
It's the last lap. I mean, last lap does mean that one tries a little bit harder to hold on to one's first place, but I'm only learning from him, so...
To the winner, the spoils, and for Ben Edwards, good fortune prevailed, even to the last round on his home circuit, Brands Hatch. The October hurricane caused the final race to be cancelled, leaving Ben Edwards Cellnet champion for the first season of Formula First. But no one would call it an easy win.
Not an easy win at all, no. It was a very hard fight all the way through the season, but it came out right for me in the end, which was good.
Now, how did you manage to stay out of all these dreadful incidents that we see everybody else doing?
Well, most of the incidents seem to be in the midfield. Luckily, if you're out front, you managed to keep out of the way of most of the accidents, which was quite convenient, really.
Now, when the season launched, everybody said it was going to be a low-cost formula. Has it proved to be that?
Yes, I think it has. I think this year I was just running the car. I spent about £7,000 to £8,000 operating the car through the year.
Now, what did the car cost to buy?
The car cost about just under £6,000 to buy.
And it's still worth what?
Still worth about just under £5,000. So it doesn't lose much over the year.
And you got a big fat cheque the other day for winning the championship.
That's right, I got a cheque for £6,000 as well, so
you've done a season for 2,000 quid, which is not
like
bad.
That. That's right.
Not bad at all.
Pretty economical, really.
Chris Goodwin's season yielded few points and instead of a big cheque, major repair bills. But it did offer priceless experience of racing and preparation of the car.
We do fairly routine maintenance. There's not a great deal to do between races. Normally we bring the car back into the garage, clean it over, check everything's tight, all the nuts and bolts. And then what we do is concentrate on setting the car up for wheel angles, ride heights, and so on.
The whole point of the formula was to teach you to run a racing car for the season. Does it teach you a lot about chassis tuning?
It teaches you a bit, but there is a lot more to learn. These cars are fairly limited to what you can actually do to them.
What about the formula itself? Has it been successful in bringing on young drivers? I mean, do you think it's attracted the attention you hoped for?
Yeah, I think it has. I think it has. As the cars are so evenly matched, no one's got an excuse, so it really is a driver against driver. And I think it's brought a lot of good drivers to the front.
For Chris Goodwin, there was to be another chance to shine in the 5-race Top Gear series at Brands Hatch. With the leading 3 in the Cellnet Championship not allowed to take part, the first round saw Chris Goodwin back on form and first on the grid.
Miserable wet conditions greeting our first round of the Top Gear Formula First Championship race. And the drizzle coming down the circuit, very, very greasy indeed. And it's going to be survival of the fittest for this 12-lap race ahead of us. On pole position is our camera car, Chris Goodwin. There, the camera, we hope to be seeing some good pictures of the circuit, chauffeured by the owl-eyed Chris Goodwin. There is the view we have over Chris's left shoulder as he prepares for this 12-lap race for Formula First cars. The red light on, checking his revs, looking forward for the green to flash. Bit of creeping behind him, but there, Chris away for the start of this 12-lap race for Formula First cars. 2 abreast up to paddock, and it's the other front row man, Graham Fenimore, trying to go around the outside of Chris Goodwin. Fenimore, of course, the man who had that controversial accident we saw earlier with Chris Goodwin, and it's Fenimore who leads. So all of a sudden, Chris Goodwin's camera's looking at the same rear end as it's seen for many laps before. Very, very greasy indeed, but competitors all taking except but sadly someone spun right in the middle of the pack with people hopefully realising he's stationary, and that was very, very good avoidance by all the Formula First drivers, often criticised for causing accidents unnecessarily, but really some very mature driving now by these Formula First competitors as Fenimore moves to the front, with Peter Roberts coming through to a good second place ahead of Chris Goodwin and Richard Green.
Taking Tiffany Dell's advice, Chris Goodwin was concentrating on driving rather than giving a running commentary. Instead, champion Ben Edwards, unable to take part himself, joined Tiffany Dell to give expert comments on what it was like to be out there racing.
Conditions out there are very difficult, obviously. There's cars are sliding around all over the place, and these very greasy conditions make the racing difficult as well. It's difficult to judge just how far you can push the car. We're back to Chris Goodwin in the camera car, trying to get up the inside of the car in clearways there, not quite making it, just balancing the power against the steering as he comes out of the corner.
Roberts now looking for the inside, trying to hold tighter coming out of paddock, and now Fenimore's beginning to go up the inside. He's using the defensive line, and straight away we see, oh, and that's very sad there. Goodwin really, Roberts waving a fist at him to say, you know, that wasn't quite necessary. Ben, what do you think?
Well, as Chris approaches Druids, he sees the opportunity to outbrake Pete Roberts, who is out on the left-hand side. Pete sees him come through and closes the gap on him, and contact is made. Round goes Pete Roberts in front of Chris Goodwin's car, and Chris just manages to scrabble round the edge of the corner onto the grass, trying to control the car, stop it going into the gravel trap where he'll remain stuck forever, and he just tries to head it back onto the circuit again so that he can carry on in the race. Of course, in the meantime, a lot of cars are going past him on the circuit.
For the family back in the pits, any delay in the arrival of car number 1 brings back anxieties from the summer.
I wasn't very happy in the middle of the season when he started having his accidents and we realised that he was driving over his head. But since then, he's come on a lot better, and I'm not quite so petrified when I stand on the pit wall now.
I mean, obviously the question every mum must wonder, what's it like watching your son out there?
Well, it's pretty nerve-wracking. At the moment, I'm suffering from pre-race nerves. I think I get the pre-race nerves. But I get caught up in the excitement of it all, and it is very exciting.
Do you wish he'd gone into stamp collecting?
Very often I do, but I am behind him all the way, though.
There was more drama for Chris Goodwin later in the race. As he fed the power in on the exit from Graham Hill Bend, the back got away from him and he gently rotated to a halt. And that dropped him from 5th down the field, and he eventually finished 9th. Up front, the order of the first 3 remained the same to the end.
Very sensible driving by Fenimore, and he's going to win this race. I thought there were many challenges to the lead, but it is going to be Fenimore that wins the first round of the Top Gear Series. One back margin to lap, but a fabulous race and a good drive by Fenimore, Green and Keith Farrance in 3rd place.
Motor racing is bedevilled by people bending the rules, but Formula First was very carefully policed right through the year. There were checks on power output and overall weight after every race, and very little evidence of cheating.
No, we've been very, very careful about this, because there's 1 or 2 in the field that have been very professional, and they've got very close to the limits, but no one's gone over the limit all year. We automatically test the first 3 in every race, and 3 at random, so you could be last and still get tested.
Graham Fenimore's car was passed as legal, and the win meant quite an improvement since his collision with Chris Goodwin back in May.
From that accident, I found out the car wasn't set up properly by taking it to someone to repair it, and when they put it right, I've gone further and further up the grid qualifying and finished in higher positions.
By the last round of the Top Gear Series in December, Graham Fenimore was lying 2nd in the championship to Richard Green, a strong performer since the middle of the season.
The cars are very easy to drive. It is a very good class to start in. Initially there were some accidents, but I think that's all sorted itself out now.
Keith Farrance, lying in 3rd place in the championship, was seeking to disprove that contention at Paddock Hill Bend, but only succeeded in letting Chris Goodwin through into the lead.
And Goodwin, yeah, this has got the lead now. Farrance made a 2nd error, and this time Goodwin made sure he made most of it. So Chris Goodwin now in the lead. Keith Farrance regretting that error and fallen to 2nd.
A lap later, Keith Farrance obliged Graham Fenimore in the same way.
Again, Farrance has made a big mistake at Paddock and gone off onto the old circuit.
It was the sort of safe and cheap excitement that Formula First was designed to provide, and it gave Ralph Furman an optimistic outlook for the future.
The Formula is achieving exactly what it was set out to do, and that is to introduce new people into motor racing. I'm sure that there's many of them out there now would possibly be powerboat racing or doing something else now, but it's in their grasp to buy a Formula First and race it at a very, very low cost.
Coming up now to finish 5, half distance, and Fenimore a fair way back now and battling with Farrance, but the championship at the moment looking to be Fenimore's in S. Green, and there a nice move by Keith Farrance, very nicely judged, and a bit of a bump of wheels, and oh, that's unfortunate for the 2 front runners. Bang into the barriers goes Fenimore, and really Fenimore tried to close Farrance down a little bit much, would you say, Ben?
Yes, well, it was very difficult to decide there. It was very close as they went into Paddock. They just touched wheels as they went through the corner, and they were both spinning off. Fenimore right, hitting the barriers and damaging the car quite badly. So that's given Chris Goodwin a huge lead now. But of course, it's done no harm to Richard Green for his championship aspirations. So maybe Richard Green will now win this championship.
Leader now well on his way. There we see him just shooting out to the right of shot into clearways now for the last time, and Chris Goodwin's going to be a very relieved man. I think he hasn't got the camera looking over his shoulder, and maybe he'll never have a camera looking over his shoulder again, because this time it's going to be victory for Chris Goodwin after a very steadily driven race, and I think everybody's pleased for Chris. They're a much relieved Chris, winner of the 5th and final round of the Top Gear Series.
I've been waiting a long time for this, so it was even better. But it was a hard race. For the first few laps, it was very, very tough. But having got ahead, it became a lot easier. I managed to ease off, just take it nice and easy, make sure I stayed on the track, really.
And the formula's worked out successfully. You still feel it's been a good year learning?
It certainly taught me a lot. I think it's taught me more than anything else could have done. I'm just hoping that maybe next year, if we can get the support, I'll be able to put what I've learned into action.
The end of one year means finding a budget for the next, preferably in a faster formula. But it also meant Chris Goodwin had a Formula First car for sale. Very good condition, low mileage, full service history, one careful owner, first on the grid.